Okay.
If you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, you got 3 road games in your first 5 to start the season this year. How much of a challenge is that going to be, and how are you preparing for such a tough stretch to the season?
Yeah, that's accurate. The 3 road games right out of the gate, or out of the first 5. I'm one to never really complain about the schedule. I don't care what it is. Just tell us who we're playing, when and where, and we'll be there. And so I really, honestly, haven't put much, if any, thought to that. It ends up when the season's over with, you got the same amount of home and away as everybody else, mostly. And so I haven't thought one way or another about that, but it is a little bit more of a challenge early in the season, which means that later on in the season we should have a stretch where there's more home games. So I don't know how to answer that other than I don't really put a lot of thought into how the schedule plays out because I can't control it. There's no, control the controllables. There's nothing I can do about it, and so you just live with it.
And additionally, you talked earlier today about Devin Dampier's ability to run the football and improvise, and you also talked about your O-line, which you're really excited about this season. Do you anticipate that Dampier might run the football less improvising because his protection will be better this season? And if so, are you going to have more design runs this season?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so as far as breaking the pocket because of necessity and scrambling for his life, yeah, hopefully that is lessened from what he had to do last year. But there will be QB design run. I mean, that's part of his strength, and so we're not going to take that away from him. Is he going to rush for 1,100 plus yards? That's debatable. But you got a guy that has a unique ability. You don't want to just completely take that away from him.
Kyle, during spring practice towards the end, you said you guys were going to be selective with what you brought in from the portal, and you guys did bring in 2 wide receivers, a defensive tackle, and a running back. This is the first time we've been able to talk to you since that happened. What do all 4 of those guys bring to this team now?
Well, refresh my memory who they were.
So you have Tobias Merriweather,
Yep.
Larry Simmons, Dylan Battle, and Bryce Duke.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're all going to add to what we're doing. Merriweather is a big, tall target that really is a guy that we think has a ton of upside. But and the running back is a guy that adds to that room. That whole room is brand new, by the way. There's not one returning running back scholarship on the roster, and so that's just another addition to that room. And so we feel like we've really helped ourselves with the portal just overall. Wish some of those guys could have been there at spring ball, but none of them were available due to their circumstances. I can say this, that Coach Beck's system on offense is very user-friendly, much easier to learn than what we previously had in place, which lends itself to be more friendly towards transfers, and especially guys that are late arrivals, because you can't have offensive and defensive schemes that are so complex and such a steep learning curve that it takes a year or two to get the system down. That used to be the case where we could develop players, but now if they're not playing by a year or so, they're out of there. They leave, and so I think that we've, I don't want to say dummied down, but simplified our schemes on both sides of the ball to accommodate for that.
You said you'll give Jason Beck complete autonomy.
Absolutely.
How different is that maybe from what you've done in years past, or is it?
No different. Every coordinator that's come through there has had the ability to do exactly what he wants. My only request is take care of the football. We just can't be reckless and turn it over in droves. And so that's the only thing that I really stress. Otherwise, do what you want to do, get it done.
Kyle, do you anticipate Wayan Parker getting the lion's share of the carries like Mekhi Bernard did a season ago, or would you like it to be more by committee this year?
Well, there's a good chance of that coming out of spring. He's made an argument for RB1. Now that'll continue to be looked at during fall camp, as well as I mentioned, the wide receiver depth and who are the go-to guys there. But Wayan's got a special ability. He's got great contact balance. He rushed for 700 or 800 yards last year as a true freshman at Washington State. And so with that offensive line that we got, we think he's going to be even more productive for us.
As you guys get ready for fall camp, what are the 2 or 3 biggest things that you need to settle outside of the wide receiver and running back?
The corner opposite Scooby Davis, that's still up in the air. We have 3 or 4 candidates who are really in the mix for that, but it's not settled yet. We need that to get settled earlier rather than later in camp. Also, the slot corner behind Smith Snowden, who's going to be the next guy up. We have 2 or 3 candidates that are battling for that as well. And then we got to have the young tackles. We got 3 defensive tackles who have some experience that are proven commodities, but we got 3 young guys, and we got to decide which 1 or 2 of those guys are the most ready to contribute this year, because they're going to have to.
Coach, 5 and 7 seasons have been very rare during your tenure. How has the challenge of turning that around at this stage in your career motivated you, lit a fire under you?
Yeah, it's got my all my attention, that's for certain. And last year was a disappointment. It was very frustrating, but it's reality. I mean, you can list off the reasons as to what our struggles were because of, but nobody cares. I mean, they were something that we didn't do a good enough job of overcoming, and so it motivated me very much so to get ready for this season and get a team ready that is going to be extremely competitive, and we got a lot of things going for us. And we haven't played anybody yet, but I'm excited to watch these guys play on August 30th.
Would you support collective bargaining and players becoming employees of the school?
I think it's heading that way. I don't know if I support or don't support it. I know that the system we have in place is not sustainable, and even with the Rev Share and the changes that have been made, I'm still not buying the fact that it's the answer. I think that the closer I realize when you say, well, college football is not the NFL, but the NFL has been doing some good things for a lot of years, and we got to take some pages from them on how to implement salary cap, collective bargaining if it comes to that. I think that's the only real way to get a grasp and a handle on things. As distasteful as it might sound to some people, I think an NFL minor league model is the best direction to head. Personally, that's my own opinion.
You mentioned collective bargaining. Are you a proponent of that? Do you see that on the horizon?
Yeah, collective bargaining for NFL players is one thing. For college students, it's not quite as, they're not as experienced, they're not as savvy. But I think that you're going to see it eventually, and I think you're going to see. I still believe that super conference concept is on its way. I really buy into that, and I think that there'll be X amount of teams that break away. They'll have their own conference commissioner, and they'll do things the way they want to do them, and everyone else is going to kind of have to fend for themselves.
Kyle, you talked to ESPN about kind of the reason you came back and just kind of how last season kind of.
One of the reasons I came back.
One of the reasons.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through why you decided to come back and where you're kind of at right now?
I couldn't stomach going out on that with that season, as frustrating as it was and as discouraging as it was. I just didn't sit well with anybody, but most of all me. And so I thought, hey, that's not going to be the final act of my deal. I gotta come back and try to get the ship righted and get back on track.
Along those lines, you had the retirement clause added to your contract. I guess why now, and kind of what went into that?
Well, that's always been there. It got modified a little bit, but it's been in place for 6 years, 5, 6, 7 years. So that was always there.
Kyle, I'm interested about the QB2 battle between Bird and Isaac.
Good question.
What are you looking for as fall camp opens between those two?
Yeah, well, which guy can move the chains, get us in the end zone, take care of the football, and right now that's shaping up, based on the tail end of spring, that is shaping up to be a real battle between Isaac Wilson and Bird Ficklin, and Bird just got better by the day, seemingly, and just continued to make better and better decisions. His athleticism showed up more and more, and by the end of spring ball, him and Isaac were in a heated battle for the backup, and that will continue through fall camp. And what we're looking for is just what I said, a guy that can move the offense and get him in the end zone and not put the defense in bad situations.
Kyle, what's the biggest issue that needs to be fixed in college football right now?
Biggest issue is we've got to have somewhat of a level playing field with the NIL space. Now, I shouldn't say NIL, but with what we're paying them. Bottom line, they're professionals. They're getting paid like professionals, and we've got to get a handle on that. We can't have X amount of schools spending $50 million on rosters, and the rest of us $12 million. I mean, it doesn't work. I mean, it works, but there's about 12 teams that'll have a chance to win it all every year, and that's it. So I would say leveling the playing field with a salary cap, again, back to the NFL model, and making things more uniform. And it works in the NFL, so why can't it work at this level?
When you got into January and you were talking to your team, kind of what the goals were for this year, kind of what is your main focus? Obviously, wanting to have success, winning, that kind of stuff. But what's kind of your main focus?
Win the Big 12. I mean, that's our objective. And when we're in the Pac-12, it was win the Pac-12. We're in the Mountain West, it was win the Mountain West. So that doesn't change from year to year. You can't get to playoffs or whatever else there is unless you take care of business in your own conference. So that's always the first objective, is to win the conference.
In what ways has the program kind of changed both on the field and off the field in terms of leadership and kind of the intangibles?
Not much. We've got a culture that's remained fairly consistent. It's more difficult to maintain that culture now because instead of 20 or 30 guys turning over each year, it's 60 guys. Fully half your roster is new. And so it's a little more difficult to indoctrinate the new guys because there's more of them and less of the guys that have been in the program to teach them. But we've been fortunate. We got a good group of guys, and our players have done a great job of setting the standard and the expectations of what the new guys need to live up to. And so we have a saying, you guys have heard me say it over and over, the guys that come into our program, they will become us, we will not become you. And so you come to Utah, we do things a certain way, and you'll do it the Utah way or else you won't be here.
By seeing Devin Dampier's stats, watching his film, we can understand why he's so dynamic.
Yeah.
But it seems he's won you guys over off the field. How did he do that and do it so quickly?
Just that's who he is. He's a great leader. He's not an ego guy. He's a team guy. Our players picked up on that very quickly. I've said it many times. 2 weeks into the semester, we have a leadership council vote. He is a landslide member by the votes he accumulated from the rest of the team after only 2 weeks being around him. He is a guy that has that magnetism of leadership, of follow me, I'll show you the way, and here we go. And I think all the players have sensed that. He's got a great rapport with the offensive line as well. He spent a lot of time with his offensive line, takes him out to dinner. I mean, has a lot of interaction with them, and that's what it takes. I mean, you got to care. It can't be all about you. And he is the furthest thing from a me guy. He's a team guy all the way.
With Spencer Fono and Caleb Loma, it would be easy for them to read their own press clippings and say,
Yeah.
we're number one or a first round pick. How do you, what have you seen from them that gives you confidence that they don't buy into that kind of stuff?
Well, first of all, Jim Harding is a phenomenal offensive line coach, and he instills into them just that mentality. Hey, it's not about you, it's about the team. Don't be a selfish guy. Work hard, do the things we ask you to do, and good things will come, to those that do that. And his track record is incredible as far as taking guys, developing them, and helping them advance to the National Football League. And all our offensive linemen see that and believe in him. And whatever he says, they follow. And I think he's the best offensive line coach in the country, and we're fortunate to have him. And I think he's the driving impetus and the main reason why these guys have such a great attitude up front.
As you go into your second year in the Big 12, what is one thing that you can maybe take from last season and implement into this season?
Not get to your fifth quarterback. If the quarterback's healthy, that's the primary thing. There wasn't a lot. The defense played fine last year. I mean, there was so many positives about our team, but the reality is when you're down to your last quarterback, it's tough to have continuity when every 2 weeks you're moving to the next guy. And so, but again, I don't want to make it sound like excuses because we own it, and we did not. Maybe we should have had 7 quarterbacks in the program instead of just 5. But that's the biggest issue, hands down.
What's different about Jason Beck's offense compared to some of the other offenses?
Jason Beck's offense, first of all, is much more simplistic in learning. It's not to say that it's a simple offense, but it's simpler for the players. We have guys signaling in to different positions, what their assignment is. They don't have to know things by rote memory, and so the learning curve there is way less. It's not quite as intricate as some of the schemes that we've had in the past, and defensively as well. And I've told both coordinators this year and even for the last couple of years, with the influx of transfer portal guys, we have got to simplify things because we had a very complex NFL type of schemes on both sides of the ball, and you can't sit there and expect a guy that gets there in January or even June and be ready to play in August if his learning curve is too steep. So that's something that's been a big push, is to make sure things simpler. That doesn't mean they're less effective, but just simpler to learn.
How has the general manager role with you, how has that evolved, even over the last month or so with Rev Share.
Yeah, it's huge. Couldn't do it. Without a general manager, you couldn't do it. If I had to do all the conversating and negotiating with agents and parents, I'd have no time to do anything else. And so we have a general manager, Robert Blecken, who does a phenomenal job. He's on the phone 16 hours a day, talking to just that, agents and parents. And now I'm in lockstep with him. He keeps me apprised of everything that's going on. It's not like he's making all the final decisions, but he's doing all the work on the front lines and negotiating. And at the end of the day, we reconvene, and here's what's happened today. And so we're on the same page, but he is the guy that does all the dirty work.
What are your expectations for Jonathan Hall this season?
John O'Hall, he's a guy that made the transition from safety to linebacker without missing a beat. There's no question in my mind, or his now, I believe, that that's where he belongs. He came into the program about 205. He's now 235, and looks exactly like a linebacker should look. He's explosive, he's fast, and we look for him to have a big year for us.
Do you feel like this is kind of a critical season for the program to try to avoid having 2 losing seasons?
Well, every season's critical. We certainly want to avoid having 2 in a row. There's no doubt about that. But we approach every season as if it's the last season of college football history. I mean, it's everything. We pour everything we have into every single season.
You brought the rest of your 2025 class in the last couple of months of the freshmen. What have your early impressions or thoughts on those guys?
A lot of good talent. A lot of them were here in January. They got probably half the class were early graduates, which made them have a huge head start on the rest of the guys. But we've got everybody in now. Really excited about our 3 young defensive tackles. We had one of them in January, but the other 2 got here just in the last month. And so we think that we hit the jackpot with those guys. We're also very impressed with the young linebackers that we have in the program. A lot of those are the second year coming up in the program, but we feel like that position is well stocked for years to come.
Heading into fall, how do you feel about your defensive tackle position?
D-tackle position, we got 3 guys with experience. Aliki Vimahi, Dallas Fakalahi, who I thought played exceptionally well last year, given the fact that he was just on a church mission up until about 3 months before the season started. So he did not have a lot of time to get ready and get himself in shape, but he played exceptionally well. Spring, he was even better than he was in the fall, as you might expect. Jonah Lea'ea is now up to 295 pounds. He was 240, 235 when we got him, but he's put on a bunch of weight and ready to play. And then we got those 3 young D tackles that 2 of the 3 are going to have to be ready to contribute right away.
Sonny gave a shout out to you and Mike up there at the podium.
Because we're old? Or what?
Well, no, just the longevity. I'll use longevity.
Longevity, okay.
Are there conversations that you and Mike can have that other coaches can't have just because of that?
Maybe in a certain respect. They're all great football coaches in this conference, so I don't think that I don't personally think that I'm any better than any of the rest of them, but I have been in one place for a long time, which is this day and age is a real anomaly. But I think me and Mike have a lot in common in certain respects. I don't know him all that well, but what I do know of him, I really like and think he's a heck of a football coach, and we have had similar paths in a lot of ways. Now he's 5, 6, 7 years younger than I am, but he has done a great job at Oklahoma State.
Brett Yormark yesterday said that the preseason poll may have hurt Arizona State. You guys were on the opposite end of that because you guys were picked first.
That's what I blame. I blame our woes on the preseason poll.
Do you think that honestly has any bearing, though, on stuff like that?
Not on me. Some coaches may put a lot of stock in it, go home and cry about it or be happy about it. I just worry about preparing the football team and getting them ready to play. And nothing matters what happens. Accolades preseason. That's all preseason stuff. All the thing that matters is who's left standing at the end of the year.
How has Rev Share impacted your own program's recruiting?
Well, I'll tell you in about a year, exactly. There's teams that are front loading, all the extra money they had prior to the Rev Share kicking in. We got teams spending supposedly $50 million, or more on players, and that's 5-6 times what we got. So it's tough to compete in that environment, but and I don't think the Rev Share is an equalizer, or is going to be the equalizer that everyone thinks it's going to be, because they're going to circumvent it. They'll find ways around it, just like everyone always has. And so you're still going to see a big disparity in the opportunity to build rosters. But again, until we get to an NFL model where there's a salary cap, and that's it. If you break that cap, then you get huge penalties. I mean, huge penalties. Then it's not going to work.
Coach McGuire yesterday talked about the need for agents to be certified and that helping the game. Do you think that would help some of the issues?
Yeah, I think it would help the players. Some of these guys are taking 20-25% from these guys, and that's outlandish. You know, it should be 3 to 5%, just like the NFL is, and certification would be certainly, absolutely a step in the right direction.
What do you expect to see out of Lander Barton this year?
Lander Barton, I think what you saw towards the end of the year was what his capabilities were. He was coming off that foot injury. I don't believe he was real confident in himself the first 2/3 of the season, but he really seemed to hit his stride the last 4 or 5 games, and I think that's the Lander Barton you're going to see from the get-go starting this season.
You mentioned Smith Snowden and Lander Barton maybe contributing a little bit on offense.
Absolutely.
What do you see there?
See Smith Snowden playing some wide receiver, slot receiver, getting the ball in his hands. You can see how dangerous he is with his kickoff returns, and we need to maximize all the talent that we have, all the weapons that we have. Lander Barton was essentially uncoverable in high school. Now I know he's playing against high school guys, but he's a tremendous receiver. Many teams were recruiting him as a tight end, thinking that was his, including his dad thinks that's his best position, by the way. But you're going to see him play some tight end. And like I said, if we got a guy that can help us, that's already established in a certain spot, then you look at him playing both ways, and that's what we've got in Smith and Lander.
Do you see more two-way athletes becoming more and more dominant in college football?
Yep, I do, and I think Travis Hunter is a big reason for that. You know, he's everyone wants to be Travis Hunter, and you can see he got him the Heisman Trophy. I'm not saying that alone got him the Heisman Trophy. He probably would have won it had he concentrated on just one thing, but that's become more in vogue where people a few years ago were against it, say, no, I don't want to do that, I want to specialize. Now you're seeing players be much more receptive to that.
Coach, you have a well-documented history with BYU, obviously. What do you feel like the honor code represents for BYU from a recruiting standpoint?
Oh, you'd have to ask those guys. I've been removed from that for so long. I just couldn't say one way or the other. So I really don't want to comment on that. It would be from the outside looking in, which I don't think is the right thing to do.
Can you speak to the offensive line development and the?
Yeah, our offensive line. I love our offensive line, and again, going back to Jim Harding, he really has handpicked that offensive line and put it together. He's developed 2 guys on the edges that are projected first-round draft choices. The other 3 guys inside, all seniors that have played a ton of good football for us, and all 3 of those guys are draftable as well. Not first-round draft choices right now, but there's a scenario where all 5 guys could be drafted, and that's unheard of. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened. I'm sure somewhere down the line it probably has, but if that's the case, then but even if it's not the case, he just does such a great job of developing talent. And if you stay with Jim Harding from start to finish and don't transfer or don't leave, your chances of playing in the NFL are very high.